Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. I love starting with a good laugh, especially when we're going to have some fun, maybe strong, real talk conversation. I would like to first and foremost introduce my guest today. Let me start with the lovely Alyssa Palenzuela, digital media specialist of 13th Avenue Media. Alyssa, say hello.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Yay, very excited to have you here today.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here.
And then we also have joining us today, Myles Wood, who is the founder of Sparkle Bitch.
Hi guys, Myles Wood, director of Sparkle Bitch. Thank you for having me today.
Yay! Sparkle Bitch. So,
I love that.
catchy, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, well, you know, I was listening to my own podcast yesterday. Isn't that fun? I know. It was a little, I don't know what to call it. I really wanted to re-listen to my interviews with some of the people that I've had that have been great guests. But more important than those guests, I realized that in the intro of my podcast, I talk about how this is Pride Month. And I also talk about how it's Professional Health at Work Month. You know, it's also like post-traumatic stress disorder. It's everything month.
Everything month.
Yeah.
It's the world is falling apart month. Welcome.
Again,
yes, we're still here. So I thought, Mike, I can't, you know, there's been so much going on. Obviously, I'm even sick of people saying that. With a global pandemic, like, okay, I'm over that. I mean, I'm not over the pandemic. I'm just over hearing that that's what it is. We know.
Yeah.
We're in it. We also know Black Lives Matter and not all lives matter. We know 100%. That.
100%.
Okay, good. So, now I want to talk about the awesome news that we got about the Supreme Court ruling for L.G.B.T.Q community. And I meant to put a "the" in front of that. Okay, so reverse. So let's start with Alyssa. Alyssa, I would love if you would tell the story of the time we first met 2 years ago.
Yes, I do love this story, and I think I've told it a couple times. I might have even told it before in the last video we did together, but it's so good that I'll tell it again. And it's good because it's really relevant to this Supreme Court ruling, in the sense that so the story goes is that when Sharon and I first met 2 years ago, I responded to an Indeed ad. And we met for coffee as our first meeting. And one of the first things I do when I'm meeting with a potential employer, and this isn't the first time I've done it with I'd say the past 3 employers I've had, is in the first conversation, I very much make sure to say, just so you know, I'm gay. And that was not your reaction at all on that day, although I told her in the first meeting, because to me, if we're gonna work together, it's important that you know, God forbid, it's a problem for you and it doesn't work out simply because of that. So that's why I always tell the people that I'm gonna work for, like, you have to know this about me, because eventually it's gonna come up, and I'd rather it come up sooner rather than later. I'd rather you know right away, before I get to know you, before we get like our whole system going here and have something working out. If it's gonna be a problem, I want the person that I'm working for to tell me right away. So that was the thing that I mentioned to Sharon in our very first conversation, and like her reaction was non-existent. Like it was not that, it was very much just like straight face. And so much so that I thought I left that meeting thinking she didn't hear me say it. And I'll never forget it because I was like, I'm gonna have to tell her again.
I'm gay.
Like, please say something. I'm just so not used to that. I'm used to getting some sort of reaction, like surprise, some sort of facial, some sort of something. And she was so unfazed that I didn't get anything. Which honestly, and as soon as I realized that was the reaction, that's I would say, I'll speak for myself, that was my ideal reaction. Because you don't really want someone to be like, oh, wow.
So you are? You don't look gay.
Right, which is what I'm used to hearing and stuff. Yeah, that reaction was great.
Well, I do love that story, and I want to make sure before we get to Myles that I'm able to tell you that I want to release a little bit of my ignorance, which is one of the things that I love doing the most, because I do feel like it gives other people the opportunity to also release some of their mistakes or their ignorance, or maybe just be a little more vulnerable. Okay. So the truth be told, no, I did not. I don't even remember Alyssa saying that in the interview. It did not matter to me. I didn't even have a thought about it. Maybe I wasn't listening. I'm kidding, of course. I'm kidding. So, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. So no. But I was like, she doesn't look gay. No, I'm kidding. I can't help myself. Like, there's too many jokes about that. But the truth is, I did not know, because I'm from New York. I've said this many times, that I didn't know that in the state of Florida that you could be fired for being gay. I had no idea. I ran a pediatric practice for 8 years and I didn't know that. So that's number one. And number two, when you were the one to make me aware of this, and then many other friends of mine who are part of the L.G.B.T.Q community. I've been a huge supporter of Equality Florida. I will forever. I'm just a huge supporter of equality in general. I actually am a supporter of humans.
Yay!
Yay, us.
We love that.
Yes. And I did hear something really great on Brene Brown this morning, which I can't believe I'm admitting to again, that I really love her. And I don't know why I was like anti-Brene. And
She's amazing.
She's amazing. Well, I guess I didn't put it in my notes. Never mind. I'll look for it while Myles is talking. Myles. Yeah. Why don't you just well, Myles said before we got started, why don't we talk about what, like the parameters of what we're going to discuss? And I was like, nope. Okay, let's start. So the parameters are nothing. We want no barrier, no parameter. We want to have just real conversations. Myles, you speak for yourself about what it has been like to be who you are. I'm not saying it for you. I want you to say it. And experience of business and being in jobs and now having this wonderful ruling. Take it away, Myles.
Perfect. Thank you, Sharon. So, I grew up in a very small town in Florida. I am native Floridian, and it was not a very cool thing to be gay. In fact, I came out at 15 years old, and it was like the shock of the world. And I thought my world was ending. Little did I know I would end up here and creating a company called Sparkle Bitch. However, I have. And I struggled with being authentically me, because I thought there was a box that I needed to fit into to have the business, to attract the clients, etc. Whatever. I had to look a certain way, act a certain way, yada yada. And so this ruling is really amazing, because it's saying, like, no, we're not doing that. It's 2020. Get with the program. And it's no longer state by state. It's a federal level deal, which is phenomenal. And it also includes the transgender world that is struggling really badly right now. And I love that, because on the day of the Pulse massacre, which happened, a few years ago, Friday, Trump decided to roll back the healthcare protections for transgender people. And so when the Supreme Court ruling was coming around for this, it's like, okay, we have quite a few conservatives who are now filling these judicial positions. What the hell is going to happen? And next thing you know, it was the main conservative who was like, no, we're not judging you based on your sexual orientation. Your sex is protected, period, whether that's a man, woman, and whoever you decide to marry and be with, you can't be fired. And that's phenomenal.
Amen.
Yay.
Amen.
Yay.
So exciting.
It's very exciting. I want to admit a few more things, and I want to talk about Juneteenth that's coming up. So I listened to Brene Brown this morning, and she was talking with Laverne Cox. And Laverne Cox, of course, they were talking all about transgender representation. And she has a documentary coming out this Friday on Netflix, which I was so excited to hear because, well, nobody loves a documentary like me, but throw in some transgender and some, you know, finally we're getting our voices heard. And I'm saying are like I'm transgender, but you know, I mean, whatever. I really was just so happy to hear this documentary coming out, the power of what Laverne did way back, and how movies are depicted by people of transgender. And it's just like, even though, and I want to touch on the pride thing with us because this is June, right? And I was thinking about Alyssa and I last year, we went to the Pride parade together. Well, the festival after the parade, because I'm just old, I'm 47.
Yeah, she came with me. It was so good. I'm gonna miss doing that this year.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, and it's important for me to be that ally and to show how excited I am and how I'm not afraid to talk about this anywhere at any time. I've never have been because it's just never been an issue for me. But I realize where I live now is different than where I once lived in New York. So number one, I didn't know Juneteenth existed until all of this, racial unrest has gone on. And I also feel this wonderful sense of pride, honoring Black Lives Matter almost more than the celebration of pride. So, Alyssa, can you just share your thoughts just on that, what I just mentioned?
Yeah, 100%. I feel like, June is such an important month for our community, but right now, considering the state of our country, I feel like as a whole, our community has taken a step back, and we're here to support our Black brothers and sisters and the Black, Lives Matter movement. By kind of being there to support them. And it's only, Pride started as a riot. Pride, it was started at Stonewall. It was led by Black, queer people of color. And so it's only fitting that our community takes a step back right now and is here to support everyone that's, protesting and trying to get their rights fet, and supporting our Black brothers and sisters is super important. And so I think that we're all on board saying it's okay that Pride isn't going to look like it normally looks this year. Yeah. And I can't imagine celebrating Pride right now in the normal sense with everything that's going on. It just doesn't feel right to me, and I'm only speaking for myself, but I think that as a majority we have decided that that's where our community deserves to be right now. I mean, we wouldn't have Pride as a celebration if it wasn't for the people that came before us that were people of color. So
it almost feels like it was divinely planned that the Supreme Justice would now, during June, during all of this, even though like we weren't pushing forth the celebration of Pride, that's something so, I just got chills as I said that, so magnificent, like this ruling would happen though, during all of it, it was, it's pretty profound. Myles, what do you think about all that?
Pretty much exactly what Alyssa was saying. We wouldn't be able to have Pride unless it was for, the queer and transgender people of color who decided to fight back and say police brutality against the gay culture, we're done. We're not having it anymore. So with, now we're giving away Pride because we're here fighting with you. Black Lives Matter, we're here for you. We're here to create equality for all. And that's really the purpose of Pride. It's equality for all of us. Inclusivity, us moving as one human race. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah. So, Laverne Cox really she was so powerful to listen to. And I've listened to a bunch of interviews with her in the past. And I loved when she was on the cover of Time magazine. And, right? Isn't she fantastic?
Yeah.
But she really, even through all of the chaos and the adversity, she always rounds everything out with love, you
Mhm.
know, and that love really is, you know, it sounds so cliche, but it really is the answer. And even through all of this turmoil that we've all been through and how horrible it has been as a, you know, with the COVID-19 and the racial unrest, and but we're all having these conversations. I guess that to me is like the foundation of healing, which is, you know, why I started this daily show, is to talk about how we can all heal. And healing comes in so many different forms. It's not just through doctors, it's not just through, you know, wellness initiatives. It's through wellness initiatives. To me, is really healing the insides and our heart to bring us all to a better place of love. And I feel like my soapbox is getting very big right now. So, but I mean it. Like, I couldn't be prouder of what's happening right now, even though it is so tumultuous. It is definitely bringing about some positive change. And sometimes that's what has to happen. It all has to rise. I've been listening to that song Rise Up all morning.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what I was playing when I started this, and you said your background noise. I was like, "That's Rise Up." My friend Cynthia in New York introduced me to that song recently. I've heard it before, but anyway. So I want to talk about Juneteenth because I'm really kind of, this is all new for me to learn as well, you know. And I think one of the greatest blessings has been to know that the best thing to do is to ask questions. It's not to pretend I know. Because I don't know. What do you guys know about Juneteenth, if anything? I'm not looking for like a Webster's dictionary answer.
That Juneteenth is the celebration that marks at the end of slavery. It's huge. It's a huge day that most people don't know about.
Yeah, I didn't know it was ever called Juneteenth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. June 19th mm-hmm. is Juneteenth, right? So that's right. The idea. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But why don't I know that? Why didn't I know that? Like, I don't understand why I didn't know that.
Because it's the way that we're taught everything. You know, I'm sure you may have, but the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre that happened, where they burnt down, you know, pretty much all the black district, finance district, and pretty much destroyed it. I never knew about that until I was really like, what's happening? What are we talking about here? And the same with Juneteenth. I never a day in my life have I remembered like, oh, that's the end of slavery. No, I wasn't taught that. You know, in my mind, it was so long ago. You know, I'm like, oh no, that was forever ago. However, segregation, there are people who are still alive that were part of segregation, you know, part of the beginning of that. So our history is just, they tell us what they want us to know. You know, they want to leave out certain details because they have a narrative, which comes into the systematic racism that we're still dealing with today. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No, very well said. I think that I had to teach myself that, right? Like, I don't remember learning that in school. And that's part of just like us as white people taking responsibility to really learn the things that we weren't taught because of that kind of selective history, if you will. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, even learning from Laverne Beatty not too long ago when she walked into a conference room at my office space, that I know the people that built that space are probably some of the most amazing thought leaders that I've met. And the first thing she said, because when I do a tour and I bring somebody into that room, they're always like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. You know, it's this green map of the world. And she was the one who taught me that it did not depict Africa correctly. And it is kind of shocking, actually, what we're all hearing about now. That's why I say that even though it's horrible times, it's bringing so much to light that I've been ignorant about, that I've needed to know, that I have not, you know, I don't have a problem admitting that I didn't know that. I mean, Nike, you know, came out and made it a paid holiday for their employees to take off on Friday. And I think others will follow suit if they haven't already, because my God, how the white people didn't know that that was the name of a thing. I mean, certainly we learned about the end of slavery, but certainly we need to learn a lot more.
Yeah.
I watched 13th the other day with my family. It was incredible, incredibly disgraceful, but incredible nonetheless.
I
To
love
watch
that you
with
watched
my
it.
family, yes.
Yeah. That's important, is that we're having these conversations. So I commend you for doing that. It's a great place to start. Education, right? So
it's a little forced learning. Not that they don't want to learn, but I mean, it has to be done. We have to have these conversations. I have to read White Fragility, and I have to, speak up when I go to my board meeting about what's going on in my own community. We have to do these things. So,
What's
go ahead, Myles.
Well, I just remember seeing a quote, and it's white privilege is learning about racism versus experiencing racism. So we have the gift of learning about this, whereas Black people are feeling this every day. And we're now, it's great. It's a great conversation that we're there. However, the whole, I don't have white privilege. I don't have privilege. I came from this place. I came from that place. It's like you probably did have a rough upbringing. However, it wasn't based on the color of your skin. And that's where we are.
Right. I had a friend on a conversation this morning I was having. She's had heard from somebody else this wonderful, impactful statement about blatant and casual discrimination. Things can be said so casually and be so offensive.
Yeah. There's another term for that too. It's like microaggressions. Yes. Little things that are said to people that seemingly people say them harmless, but they're actually wildly offensive.
Like what? Do we have examples of that?
Like, yes, like these are things I've heard. You speak so well for a Black girl. That's someone says that with intention of being complimentary, but it's actually incredibly offensive. What does that even mean? What do you mean for a Black girl? Like that's.
You're such an eloquent speaker.
Right. That's not a nice thing to say.
Don't sound white.
Don't say that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, well, it's funny that you said that because that is a part of the conversation that I had this morning. I was talking about my girlfriend in New York who, with 23 years, we've been friends. And I would, of course, tell her all of the casual discrimination that was like, it was like missiles going off of people, what they were saying about how, she was such a wonderful speaker, my Black girlfriend.
Yeah.
She spoke so eloquently.
Yeah. I know. I've heard this from like my best friend Kira all the time, and Kira and I were both English majors in college. She's one of my best friends. So, and she's the person that like, if I have a question about some sort of grammar issue or something, I go to her. She's the only person that I trust. But for all the time, because she is so well spoken, she hears it all the time as a Black woman. You're so well spoken. Yeah. Where did you learn English? Like all that bullshit.
Right.
Yeah, she speaks better than most, like 95% of people I've ever met. So
it is actually really great to be having these candid conversations. And I know I'm certainly honored to be in your worlds, both of you, Myles and Alyssa, and learning together as a team. I think most of you know, Alyssa and I work together at 13th Avenue Media, and Myles is creating this incredible brand and spending some time with us, and he's giving us some tips, and we're giving him a hell of a lot more. It's been a wonderful kind of union, and I told Anish, who's also part of the 13th Avenue Media team, that he just, as much as we'd like to have him today, just kind of doesn't belong in this conversation, which he appreciated me thinking about him. I didn't want him to feel left out. So although these conversations can be uncomfortable, they're certainly not uncomfortable for us. We have many. We're going to start with 13th Avenue Media. We're going to start bringing out some more of the videos that Alyssa and I did a few years ago, where she educated me on some of the things that I didn't know. So she allowed me the opportunity to ask questions about my own ignorance in terms of, gay, straight, bisexual, pan. Like there's so many terms I had no idea, and I felt honored to be able to be in a safe place where I could ask the questions and not be judged because I didn't know.
Yes.
So.
Yes, I've always said it's okay to ask questions. It's okay if you're willing to learn, it's okay to ask questions, but you have to be willing to be educated. And that's something I've always preached about you, is that if I were ever to say like, oh, maybe you should say this instead, you would absolutely take it, and it would never be like offensive. You would always take it as a learning experience, which is, I just recommend for anyone that has questions, like ask them, but ask them respectfully and be willing and open to learn.
Right.
Curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't disagree and say, but you don't look gay.
Right. Don't tell me that I'm not. Do not start there. That's not the best place to start. That's not going to be the best.
But you grew up in such a good area.
Yeah. But you have long hair.
Yeah. How come you don't cut your hair short?
Yes, I know. It's tough.
A little lipstick.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm like never offended if someone assumes that I'm straight. I'm offended if I tell them I'm not and they still insist that I am. That's where the problem comes in for me. So, yeah.
All right. Well, any parting words for you, Myles, before we say ta-ta?
Just be you. Keep the conversation going. Keep the curiosity there. Don't let Black Lives Matter movement die down. It's not a fad. It's a full-blown movement. And we're all in it together.
We are. All love.
Yeah.
All love.
We're sending all love out there to the world today. So it is, Wellness Wednesday. Why wouldn't we send out love? So thank you for being here today. Thanks for having an open conversation. And let's see each other in a few minutes.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
So don't forget, if you mention that you have seen the show or listened to the podcast, Thai Technology, 3 months for free.